Uncle Ron and stuff. I did a video yesterday about a Jennair oven convection fan replacement, and thinking about it, I had done some previous work on the same unit, and I thought I would quickly cover it today. This is partly from memory, but I have reconstructed the event. And the deal is that I have this particular uh, Jennair model, which is a natural gas cooktop with an electric oven. And what you do is you take these burner knobs and you turn them all the way to counterclockwise, and it goes in the ignition position. And what should happen is that you should get sparks at each one of these burners. There's 4 up here. There. 1, 2, 3, 4. The sparking unit that sets at each one of the burners, they should all spark at the same time. Take any one of these burner control knobs down here, and you counterclockwise all the way to the ignite position, and all spark units should be sparking. And that makes sense if you think about it, is if one was partially on or whatever, you want it to ignite just so you'd be aware of it. Okay, so what was happening was sometimes you would try to ignite the system and you wouldn't get any spark at all. Sometimes you'd turn it and it would work. It was flaky. Okay, so with this model number, I did a search, and sure enough, there is a spark unit available. It looks like this, and it was available. And you see, it lists my model number up here, and I don't know where the product number is for this particular item, but anyway, that is available, and that's what I bought. That's the actual igniter unit for this particular unit that I have. Okay, all right. So to replace that, which I assumed had to be the problem, and if you really don't know about igniters like natural gas igniters, what you have to do is take 110 volts in, and through a set of coils and so on, you ramp it up to like 10,000 volts. Not a lot of current. It's not like an electric chair. It just makes it high enough voltage that it can jump a very small gap between the ground and the 10,000 volt point. And on each burner, there is a, right there, that is the igniter. It is a porcelain or insulated piece that comes out, and there's a bare piece of metal that touches the side of the burner, and that's ground. So when you turn on the igniter all the way, it starts sparking, and what happens is that 10,000 volts right up there jumps that gap. If natural gas is coming out here, that spark will ignite the gas. Okay. Now, I need to replace the sparker. At least that's my idea. It's flaky. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes you get a spark, sometimes you don't. So my suspect was a spark unit. Okay. Now, how do you can get a repairman, because the unit, the spark unit, is available. You know, any repairman could acquire this particular module. You can pay a repairman to do it. Now, what is required for him or you to do it? If you see here, this is the spark module right here in this particular diagram. It is located on the back side of the stove oven combination. It's on the back side. So you have to pull this unit out to get to it. Not a major big deal, but not easy either. Why? Because this particular unit uses what's called a downdraft blower system. On this picture, right here in the middle, I'll put my finger right on it. Right in the middle, there's an open grate. And as you cook, if you turn on one of these switches on the sides here, either this one or the one over there, turns on a blower. I think you can set it on low speed or high speed. And anything coming off of the steam or smoke or grease, whatever's coming off these burners, gets sucked down the middle, right in there, right in here in the middle, and gets carried down, and a blower that sits underneath of it right here. I have a picture of it. The blower, it sits down underneath, and you have to, there's the blower unit. And the blower unit is in fact bolted to the floor underneath of your oven. Okay. So you have to just disconnect the venting that, this shows you the blower underneath. You open up that front panel, and you can see the blower motor over here, and this is a squirrel cage fan sitting in here, and that's where it got vented out, and then this comes out and makes a turn and goes down to the floor and out to a pipe that takes it up to the outside. This is a better picture of the connection to the blower. And what I did when I disconnected it, this is flex hose, let's see, this flex hose right here that goes this way and goes and that connects to a piece of sheet metal pipe which goes down and then out through the sidewall. And this is flexible hose, and what I did was, if you peel this tape off, this is like duct sealant tape, metallized. You pull that off and you can basically pull this flexible out of the way. That then, the motor is fixed to the floor. That then lets you pull the complete unit forward, so you can get to the back, so you can replace the sparker unit. Okay, so that's what I was intending to do, and what I did, of course, was turn off the breaker to the whole unit. Found the breaker in my breaker boxes. I had 3 different panels, circuit breaker panels. This one was located in the C panel, that's why it's marked C over here. And it was a double switch breaker 15 and 17, because it's a 240 volt line going to the oven. Okay, so the next thing I did was I removed the door, and I told you previously, if you tilt the door open like this, then you can lift up on both sides of the door with 2 hands and lift it up and off. Okay, now getting on the back, you finally get it out far enough that you can see what you're doing, even get in behind there, and you may face that the oven is plugged into a 240 volt outlet on the wall, and you may want to unplug that just so you get a little more room in the back to get to it. And on the back, you'll find over on the left-hand side of the unit, the sparker unit, and there is a mounting bracket, and it's shown here on the diagram as 15 or 17. There is a mounting bracket that keeps the igniter unit in place. So you'll have to remove that. Probably takes a nut driver, as I remember. Or maybe a Phillips head, I don't know. Either one. You take that off, it's all unplugged, no power. You look and see how the electrical connections are made. I would suggest you loosen the sparker unit, hold the new unit up, and move one connection at a time from the old spark unit to the new spark unit. Once you're sure you have, or use your cell phone camera, take a picture of how the connections are made, and you duplicate that on the new spark unit. You get all the wires connected, you make sure they're all connected properly, you put it back into the sliding it on the back of the unit, you put the cover back on. Okay. You reconnect the cable that goes from the unit to the wall outlet. If you have one, you probably do. You move the unit back into its proper area, and then you're going to take the flex hose that you had taken off of the bottom, and you're going to pull it back around so that it properly mates up against the motor output here, the blower output. You're going to mate that up, and you're going to use some kind of sealing tape to seal the blower to the associated flex pipe, which goes to a vent pipe, which eventually goes down and dumps outside. So you are vented outside. This is the same as having a range hood, except it's built into the unit, and it's what's called a downdraft. It sucks the excess steam, smoke, bacon, whatever's coming off of whatever you're cooking on the cooktop. Okay. Now you have that unit back in place. You have sparker in place. You have, okay, so you can put the door back on. And I said, grab both sides. You carry it over. You put it down on the two levers that are sticking on either side, and you can re-energize the circuit breaker and test if that took care of your problem. And in my case, it did, but it didn't. Yes, I was getting sparks to the burners on the right-hand side of the unit, but it seemed like the ones on the left-hand side, and I'll refer to left and right here, I was getting, on these two burners, I was getting sparks over here. But on two over here, it was catchy and catch can. One of them might ignite, the other one would not. Didn't make sense because I have only one spark unit. It kicks the voltage up to like 10,000, 12,000 volts, whatever it is. And from that, there was directly wires going to the little igniter gaps that are on each one of these burners. Okay, so it didn't make sense that the sparker was selective in that it would only spark some, but not all. No, don't work like that. So, what is my problem? Okay, I looked at the igniters on each one of these burners, and there is an igniter sticking out. It is a piece of porcelain comes out the side, then a bare piece of, it's more than wire, it's actually a, fairly a substantial metal rod sticking out. And what happens when you apply 10,000 volts to that metal rod is close enough, only like, a quarter inch or less than that, to the side of the cooktop, and a spark jumps, and spark should be in the gas flow that's coming out that particular burner to ignite it. Okay, well, that wasn't really happening. So what could be the problem? And this is something beyond what a normal repairman would do. You can get a repairman to replace the spark unit on the back. The module is available. It's not a hard job. He does have to disconnect the blower. He has to pull the unit out. Maybe a good time for you to clean him behind the unit. He does have to disconnect the blower, pull the unit out, put the spark unit in, put it all back in place. It should not be an overly expensive job, an hour or two. And when I showed you the replacement spark unit, I think it was listed at it's listed as $80 from these particular people, brand new. Repairman usually jacks up the price on any part, so you didn't know this, he'll tell you that it's $150. And because they have to order it, they have to take time, they have to get it in. If they don't have it in stock, and I doubt that they would, he's gonna come out, assess the problem, say it is spark unit. When it comes in, he'll call you to install it. Okay, that's how that's gonna work. All right. Anyway, I put a new spark unit in. It would seem to work on the two right-hand burners of my cooktop, but not on the left. And again, it didn't make sense. Didn't make sense why they weren't all sparking, because there's only one spark igniter unit. All right. So what I did was I had to take a look. I looked at the igniters on the left-hand side, and they looked fine to me. Okay. So what is going on? The connection between the igniter unit on the back of the unit to the igniter. It's just, how does that happen? So when I got to looking at it, I pulled off the metal work. This is just a grate that sits on top. You can lift that off, the black, the black pieces. You lift that off, and then you're left with the two burner elements and a pan. And you can lift that pan out as well. And I was trying to see, because I could not see where any wiring went to those spark units on each one of the burners. And the igniter is part of the burner. I saw that, but it didn't say how the wiring occurred. So what I did was, and I lifted up the rear of the burner assembly, lift up the rear from burner assembly, and then pulled it backwards away from the front. And why you do that was, this is looking at the assembly, looking up into it, you'll see down here at the lower end, which is the down here, this is where this is. Whoops, this is, showing that right. That's where you'll see some porcelain electric connections right down here. That's what these two items are. And this, the burner unit that sets in and mates up against the gas supply, also has pins sticking out of it, electrical pins that have to fit down into these. This is the igniter right here. And this burner module, the pins set down in, and then you pull it slightly forward to make sure the pins are properly connected, and you lay it flat. I think I've tried to understand. What I'm trying to indicate, you need to be careful when you lift out the burner assembly, because you have electrical pins sticking out of that burner assembly that go into sockets and to stay in the top of your unit. Okay? Alright, so now I know that the spark voltages are coming through these pins on the end of the burner and going up to the ignition spark gaps in each one of the burners. Alright, so when I looked at the elements at the bottom, those connections, they looked okay to me. I couldn't see where they were corroded or greased up or anything like that. So again, I still could not see where the wires came off of the ignition unit attached to the back of the unit and came up and attached to the sockets, if you will, in the pan for the two burners on the left side and the right side. So what I did was, in looking at the top, I took out both burner pans. Now I'm left just with the top, and I could see that it was basically held in with Phillips screws. I could take Phillips screws out of the inside here of the pan, and in fact, right here, you can't see them, but there are Phillips screws along both sides that keep this unit in. Alright, I took those out, and what I found was, yes, there were wires coming from the back of the unit where the igniter is, the sparker, and they ran up and they connected to that porcelain sockets on the burner unit. And interesting enough, I did it on both sides. I took out both sides. On the right-hand side, those wires were pristine. There was no dirt, grease, grime, anything on that side. The wires were clean. If I took a napkin and wiped along the wires gently, nothing really came off. They looked fine. But on the left-hand side, where I had problems, it was all kind of, I don't know what had happened. Something got spilled, and it somehow got its way down in there. It was a greasy, yucky mess, and those wires were laying in that mess, greasy, slimy mess, and if you will, almost glued to the bottom of the oven. Okay, so my suspect was that this is very high voltage, but low current, but it's so high voltage that if the insulation is not perfect around it, it could spark, if you will. It could try to make a ground through the insulation to the top of the appliance, wherever it is. The wires were laying literally on top of the oven. There was insulation between them, obviously, but it laid on the top there, and my suspect was the wire was electrically leaking through the insulation. The 10,000 volts was maybe not totally sparking, but it was at least leaking away a lot of that voltage. So what I did was I totally cleaned that whole area, got all that grease out of there. I proceeded to degrease the wires the best I could. I made them as clean as I could. And then stop for a second. Continuation. I got interrupted last time. I cleaned off the wires. I cleaned up the grease and the mess. And then I was concerned about still the 10,000 volts or whatever it was leaking through the insulation because I thought it might have been soaked all the way through with grease. So I used liquid electrical tape, which you can buy at any big box retailer or hardware store. And I completely coated that wire with liquid electrical tape. Um, Set it up enough so I could get all around it, all over it, all everywhere, from where it came in the back all the way up to where it came to the ceramic sockets that were in the front of that burner bay, if you want to call it that. Okay, after I did that, it worked fine. All burners now spark when you go to do one, if you turn on one burner and move it over into the spark position counterclockwise. All igniters fire at the same time and continue to fire as long as you hold that ignition uh, position. So that's what I had to do. Was two areas. I had the spark replacement unit, the igniter as it's known, and I also had to take the top off enough to be able to look underneath of there and see where there had been grease or whatever spilt, that the wires that actually come from the sparker that go top the oven come to the ceramic sockets on each bay. So that's it. This Uncle Ron and stuff has had to do with a igniter replacement on a Jennair oven, and I got it fully operational. Hopefully, again, a repairman. The part is available, so you can call a repairman to have that igniter unit replaced on the back. If you have additional problems, you may suggest, or he may know, that he needs to look at the wiring from the igniter to the actual ignition points on each one of the burners. The ignition point on each burner is available. You can buy them. I expect it would only happen if you dropped something on the igniter and broke the porcelain or bent the rod or something like that. But they are available. They're not cheap, but you can buy them and install them. I've never installed one. I don't have that problem, but it should not be a major deal. Today is the 2nd of February, 2024. That's the end of this one.